It's time to make it. Just give it a try. 'Cause you can make it like the old fat guy.
Hi, I'm David Farrell, and I'd like to thank you for watching this episode of You Can Make It. Today I'm going to make something I really like, which is jerky, but I'm going to do it a little different. I'm going to use hamburger instead of strips of meat. I'm also going to go with some Hawaiian type flavors for it, which includes some pineapple. And by the way, pineapple doesn't come from Hawaii, they just grow a lot there. And some Asian sort of teriyaki flavors. And it makes for a sweet but savory jerky. And it's quite easy to do, so let's get right into it. We'll start off, I've got 1 kilogram of extra lean, and it's important that it's extra lean, ground beef here. Now, of course, you can always grind your own, but I just went to the supermarket and bought 1 kilogram of extra lean ground beef. Now, what we're going to do from there is add the liquid ingredients of our jerky. We're going to start off with 90 milliliters of soy sauce, which is 1/3 cup plus a tablespoon, and 50 milliliters or 1/4 cup of pineapple juice, 40 milliliters or 3 tablespoons of sherry. Now I just use cooking sherry because it's cheaper, but you can use real sherry too if you'd like. And then we're going to add 5 milliliters of sesame oil and 5 milliliters of sriracha. Now this is optional because it gives a bit of spice to it, but I like a bit of spice. So I'm just going to put some sriracha in my jerky. So we'll just put 5 milliliters in. It's locked up. We'll just give it a pour this way. Just be a little careful. There we go. A teaspoon or 5 milliliters of sriracha sauce. And now we're going to put some dry ingredients in our jerky. And what I have here is 35 milliliters or a tablespoon plus 2 teaspoons of brown sugar. I have 5 milliliters or a teaspoon of ginger. I have 5 milliliters of garlic powder and 5 milliliters of onion powder. That's a teaspoon each. And 4 milliliters or 3/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And they'll just go in with the other ingredients. Now, there is one last ingredient that's optional, but I recommend, and that's prog powder number 1. It's also known as pink salt number 1, Instacure number 1, and a whole bunch of varied names. What it is a mixture of salt and sodium nitrate. And it's 93.75% salt and 6.25% sodium nitrate. So you want to check the container when you buy it, whether it's pink salt, Instacure, all these things. Make sure you have that ratio. What it does is it gives the jerky a nice red color and makes it last longer. Now, I'm going to be using 2.6 grams, and I recommend you weigh it, of prog powder number 1. If you really don't have a little scale you can measure with, you're going to use 2.5 milliliters or a 1/2 teaspoon of prog powder number 1 or pink salt number 1 or whatever they're calling it where you are. And we'll just put that in. And that's all of our ingredients. So what we're going to do now is just mix this up thoroughly. So make sure your hands are nice and clean. And just get them in there and fold it over and keep folding it over until the mixture is well mixed. You want to mix for about 5 minutes. It just started to get a real sticky feeling. And now this is just going to get covered and go in the fridge overnight to let the flavors get all the way through the beef. And then tomorrow, we're going to smoke it up and make our jerky. I'll see you tomorrow. So I put the hamburger mixture in the refrigerator for over 24 hours. And now it's time to form it into jerky strips. So I put half the meat onto a sheet of wax paper, and I'm going to put another sheet of wax paper on top of it. We just want to press it out until it gets close to 1/4 of an inch thick. So just thin it out with your hands. There we go. Now we just want to take a rolling pin to it and make it even. Don't press too hard or you'll press right through the meat. Just slowly roll over it. And when you get to the edges, don't roll any more that way. Just roll from the center out until it looks like it's about 1/4 of an inch. So we'll just take a look here with a little bit of a ruler. Yeah, that's pretty well, a little thick yet. We'll give it a little bit more. Just a little bit more like that. That feels a bit better. And that is 1/4 of an inch, pretty well right on. So now that we've cut it to 1/4 of an inch thickness, just make sure you knock down any high points. Just take a knife and cut it into strips. And make them any size you want, but I like them a little bit more than an inch, maybe 1.5 inches. Not critical. Now any pieces that crumble off like this or like this, just take them away, and what we'll do is we'll roll them out again in a second. So there we have it cut into strips. Now, what length do you like them? That's really a matter of personal preference as well. Just cut it into whatever lengths you like. And if you got short little pieces like this, they can be rolled out again later. But we're just going to take each strip piece and put it on our smoker rack. Now this can be done in a 200-degree oven as well. Just put it in a rack over a tray in the oven. But it's important that air can get around to all the slices. So I'm just going to keep cutting these up and putting them on the rack, and then I'll do the other half of the hamburger and we'll be ready to go out to the smoker. So I'll see you there shortly. I've preheated my smoker to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to put the jerky in. So let's get it in the smoker. Now, I like to go about the first 30 minutes of smoking with no smoke in it. It just gives a dry surface on the jerky that doesn't take up as much smoke, and it won't be as strongly smoke flavored. If you like really strong smoke flavor, go ahead and give it smoke right from the beginning if you'd like to. So I'm going to put this in the smoker for 2 hours, but depending on the amount of direct heat from your smoker, it can take less or more time. So generally I like to put it in the smoker and start checking it about 1.5 hours, and that way I'm sure I don't end up over drying it. And then I'll check it about every 15 minutes thereafter until it's done. So I'll see you when the jerky is dried. So it took pretty well 2 hours right on for the jerky to get to the texture I like. And how you tell it's the texture you like is really a little bit of a matter of taste. After about 2 hours, you can pretty well guarantee it'll be fully cooked through. And it'll have a nice crust on it. And if you break it open, there'll be some breaking along the crust surface, but it'll be nice and pink, which doesn't mean it's undercooked. That's because we use the nitrates in the prog powder number 1. But if you want to make sure, give it a little bite. Delicious. But even though extra lean ground beef has very little fat in it, it still has 5 to 10% fat. And you want to get as much fat as you can out of your jerky. So what I suggest you do is put a plate with a paper towel on it and just put the jerky on it until you fill the plate up. and take another paper towel and pat this side well with the paper towel to get as much of the fat out of it as you can, because it stores a lot better the less fat it has in it. So there we've got as much fat as we can taken out of the jerky. Now, it tastes different after it cools down. So I'm going to, for my tasting, take a piece that I dabbed off a few minutes ago and should be down to room temperature. So I'm just going to grab one of the cooler pieces and let's give it a try. Like I say, you'll break it. It's got a crust and it's nice and soft on the inside. Let's give it a taste. This is not a spicy jerky. There's a little hint of spice there, but hardly any at all. Nobody would be scared by the amount of spice in this. What it mostly has is the sweet Hawaiian taste from the soy and the pineapple, which is what I was going for. This is a delicious hamburger jerky, and of course, you can make it.
I have a good woman. I ain't good looking, but I do some cooking. I'm the old fat guy. So use that oven if you want some lovin'. Be like the old fat guy. Be like the old fat guy.